The night before the wedding in Sela's bridal suite, her friends are laughing, having the best time. Then one of them says the most heartless joke ever. "Girl, it shows you weren't raised by your mother." "Who raised you?" Her friend cackled. "You out here getting married. And that woman is somewhere living her best life while your daddy been doing everything." She shook her head laughing. "No offense. I'm just saying. Tomorrow is going to be beautiful, but that front row is going to be a little lopsided, honey." The room went quiet for half a second. Then someone said, "Oh, stop it." And the laughter came back. And the music kept playing and the wine kept flowing, and it was fine. It was just a joke. Nobody meant anything by it. Elias was in the hallway, about to knock. He had just come to drop off a card he had written for her. Something he wanted her to have before the morning. He overheard everything. He never knocked on that door. He walked back down the hallway, sat on the edge of his bed in his hotel room, and stared at the card in his hands. He had written, "I hope today feels as complete as you deserve." He put it in the nightstand drawer. He didn't sleep. The next morning, he put on his best suit, drove to the Grand Haven Hotel, and stood in that parking lot watching black Mercedes after black Mercedes pull in. And he made a decision. Not a smart one. Not a planned one. Just the decision of a father who had heard his daughter laugh through pain one too many times and was not willing to let her do it again. Not today. Not on this day. He had $62 in his pocket. It was everything he had. And it was about to change both their lives in a way neither of them saw coming. The $62 was all he had left after fixing the suit, paying for gas from Memphis, and buying a small gift he rewrapped twice because it didn't look good enough. He didn't move. He just stood there as car after car pulled in. A black Mercedes, a shiny Chevrolet Silverado, a Ford F-150 gleaming in the sun. On any other day he might have noticed. Today he didn't. Elias Carter wasn't thinking about cars. None of this was the real problem. The real problem was waiting for him inside that hotel. And in a few minutes you'll understand exactly what that wait felt like. Then Daphne Whitmore stepped out in a champagne gown. Elegant, sharp, impossible to ignore. Her jewelry sparkled in the Georgia sun like it knew its worth. He had been a high school woodshop teacher in Memphis, Tennessee, for 22 years. He drove a 2009 Ford pickup with a cracked dashboard and a heater that worked only when it felt like it. He had raised Selah alone since she was 9 years old, after her mother packed a bag one Tuesday morning and never came back, without any explanation or at least a goodbye note for her 9-year-old daughter. Just an empty closet and a little girl standing in the hallway asking where Mama went. Elias had looked at that little girl and made a silent promise. He would be enough. He would do everything to see her happy. For 20 years he kept that promise. He worked summers. He coached the JV basketball team for the stipend. He ate sandwiches at lunch so Selah could have better options. He drove her to dance classes on Tuesday evenings and sat in the parking lot grading papers until she came out. He was there for every recital, every report card, every heartbreak, every laugh. And now she was getting married. And he was standing in a parking lot in Atlanta with $62 and a broken heart, because he had just realized something that crushed him from the inside, the way the most painful things always do. He was going to be the only one in that ballroom without someone beside him. Not just alone, conspicuously alone, because the Whitmore family would be there in full. Marshall and Daphne, bookending every family photograph like a wall. Beckett's aunts and uncles and cousins and their partners. A family that moved together pairs, in units, in carefully curated images of togetherness. And Elias would be standing there as a single column where there should have been two. He hadn't thought about it until 3 weeks ago, at the rehearsal dinner, when Daphne smiled that particular smile of hers and said, oh so gently, that the photographer would be doing a parent's portrait. Both sets of parents together. Wasn't that lovely? Selah had laughed it off. Daddy, we'll just do a father-daughter shot, she said. It'll be more meaningful anyway. But Elias had heard the gap in her voice. The place where something had been quietly missing her whole life, and she had learned so well to cover it that even she probably didn't notice anymore. He noticed. He always noticed. Before we go further, where in the world are you watching this from? Drop your city and state in the comments right now. And if you've ever loved someone so much you'd do something quietly embarrassing just to protect their joy, this story is for you. Stay with us. Elias was 54 years old, and he had not been on a date in 11 years. Not because no one had tried. A colleague at school had asked him to dinner twice. He had smiled and declined both times. It wasn't that he didn't want companionship. It was that every hour he spent on himself felt like an hour stolen from Selah, and he could never quite make the math work in his favor. So he stood in that parking lot and did something he would never be able to fully explain to anyone who hadn't lived the particular desperation of a father who loves too much and has too little. He started looking for someone to ask. Not for romance. Not for anything complicated. Just presence. Just someone to stand beside him so that Selah, on the most important day of her life, would not spend one single moment worrying about whether her father looked lonely in the photographs. He felt foolish before he even moved. He was a grown man, a reasonable man, a man who had coached teenagers through shop class without losing his temper once in 2 decades. And here he was, scanning a hotel parking lot like he was looking for a parking space. That was when he noticed her. She was sitting on a low stone wall near the side entrance of the hotel, away from the valet lane and the arriving guests. She had a paper bag beside her, and she was eating what appeared to be a granola bar, reading something on her phone with the focus of a person who had nowhere urgent to be. Her clothes were simple. Dark slacks, a neat blouse, her natural hair tied at the back of her neck. No designer, anything that he could identify. She looked, in a word, unbothered. Elias approached gentle, the way you approach something you might frighten away. He stopped a few feet from her, and she looked up, not startled, just curious. "Excuse me," he said. His voice came out bolder than he expected. "I know this is going to sound strange." She waited, not impatiently. She just waited to hear what he had to say. "I'm here for my daughter's wedding," he said. He gestured vaguely toward the hotel. "She's marrying a good man. I'm happy for her. He stopped. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the cash. $62 folded but not crumpled. He had counted it twice in the truck. "This is all I have," he said. "And I know it's not much, but I could really use someone to stand beside me today. Not as a date. Nothing like that. Just a friend. Someone to be there so my daughter doesn't spend her wedding day worrying that her old man looks like he's standing at a bus stop." The woman looked at the money. Then she looked at his worried eyes. She looked calm and unreadable in the way of someone who had learned to assess situations quickly. She asked only one question. "What's your daughter's name?" Elias blinked. "Selah," he said. "Her name is Selah." The woman was quiet for a moment. Then she folded the money carefully, placed it in her pocket, and stood. "My name is Varity," she said. "I'll be there." "There's one condition," Elias said quickly. "I won't pretend to be something we're not. I just need someone to stand beside me." Varity looked at him for a long moment. "That's not a condition," she said. "That's just decency." She picked up her paper bag. "Shall we go in?" Elias drove a 2009 Ford pickup. Varity James drove a late-model silver Toyota sedan that she left in long-term parking without a second glance. He would think about that later. Much later. The Grand Haven Hotel in Atlanta, Georgia, was the kind of place that made a certain type of person feel important and made another type of person feel like they had arrived somewhere by mistake. High ceilings, marble floors, floral arrangements the size of small trees. The type of lighting that made everyone look like they were being photographed for a magazine. Elias walked through the lobby feeling the suit on his shoulders the way you feel a costume. Varity walked through it like she had forgotten something in a room upstairs. The Whitmore family had claimed the east end of the reception hall-like territory. Marshall Whitmore, Beckett's father, stood near the bar with the posture of a man who expected service without requesting it. He was silver-haired and broad-shouldered, a commercial real estate developer out of Charlotte who had opinions about everything and apologized for none of them. Daphne stood beside him in her champagne gown, working the room with the focused energy of someone who understood that every social event was also an audition. When they spotted Elias, Marshall raised a glass in greeting. Daphne offered a smile that arrived before the warmth did. "Elias," she said. You made it. She glanced at Varity. This is my fiancée Varity, Elias said. She was kind enough to join me. Daphne's eyes moved over Varity, from head to toe, like she was already making up her mind. How lovely, Daphne said. Are you from Memphis as well? Atlanta, Varity said simply. Daphne waited for more. Varity didn't give her any. Daphne's eyes lingered on Varity a beat longer than before. Marshall extended a hand. Marshall Whitmore, Beckett's father. Varity shook it. Varity James. She smiled. Congratulations on your son's wedding. She said it warmly and moved on. Marshall was left holding the handshake a half-second longer than he intended. The ceremony was in the hotel's garden terrace. White chairs lined in rows. String lights overhead, though it was still daylight. Magnolias were blooming along the fence. Atlanta in February had decided to behave itself. The air was cool and clean. The soft blue sky was easy to look at above. Elias sat in the front row on the bride's side. Varity sat beside him. Across the aisle, the Whitmore family filled 3 rows. When Selah appeared at the end of the aisle, Elias stopped breathing for a moment. She was in white, natural and radiant, her locks pinned up with small flowers threaded through. She looked like every year of her life condensed into one image. The little girl who cried when she scraped her knee. The teenager who stayed up too late reading. The young woman who called him every Sunday from college, without fail, even when she had nothing particular to say. She spotted him, and her face broke open into a smile so specific it could only have been for him. He walked her down the aisle. She held his arm with both hands, the way she had held his hand crossing streets when she was small. When they reached Beckett, who was crying already, Elias leaned close to his daughter's ear. You are the best thing I ever did, he whispered. Selah squeezed his arm, and then stepped forward into her new life. Elias returned to his seat. Varity said nothing. She simply handed him a folded handkerchief from her pocket without being asked. He looked at her sideways. I come prepared, she said quietly. He almost laughed. He then used the handkerchief to wipe the tears already gathering in his eyes. As the sun went down, everyone moved inside. The Grand Havens ballroom was lit in gold and cream, round tables draped in white linen, centerpieces tall and architectural. A live band played something smooth from a low stage. The bar was open. The mood was the euphoria of a room full of people who had witnessed something real and were now celebrating it. Elias found his table. He and Varity had been seated slightly off-center from the main family cluster, close enough to be included, far enough to notice the distance. He understood the geometry. He had been navigating it since the rehearsal dinner. Varity sat beside him and looked around the room with the calm attention of someone cataloging rather than admiring. Across the ballroom, something small happened that Elias almost missed. The hotel's event coordinator, a woman in a headset who had been managing staff with military efficiency, looked up from her clipboard, scanned the room and went very still. She said something to the assistant beside her. Then she walked across the ballroom and stopped at their table. Ms. James, she said quietly. Her voice had completely changed. I didn't realize you were attending this evening. Is everything to your satisfaction? Varity looked up. Everything is wonderful, thank you. Please let me know if there's anything you need. Anything at all. Thank you. I will. The coordinator nodded and walked away. Elias looked at Varity. She was reading the menu card. Are you famous? He asked. She smiled without looking up. Not particularly. Across the table, Beckett's younger sister Jade had watched the whole thing. She was 26, sharp, and had her mother's instinct for reading people. She looked at Varity. Then she looked at her phone. She started typing. The toasts began after dinner. Beckett's best man went first, funny and warm. Selah's college roommate went second and had the whole room in tears. Then Marshall Whitmore stood, straightened his jacket, and picked up his glass like a man who had been waiting all night for this. He talked about legacy, about the Whitmore family's history in Charlotte. 3 generations of real estate, community, and faith. He talked about Beckett's future, about welcoming Selah into the family. and then he turned toward Elias. Glass raised. Smile in place. To a man who raised his daughter alone, he said, his voice warm but with something sharper underneath it. It must feel good to watch her marry into stability, into a family that can give her everything she deserves. Nobody said a word. Selah stopped smiling. Beckett found something interesting about his dinner plate. Elias didn't move. He had heard versions of that comment his whole life. From administrators who eyed his truck. From other parents who asked where his wife was. From a world that looked at a single father and saw something incomplete. He opened his mouth. Varity spoke first. She did not stand. She did not raise her voice. She set down her fork with precision and looked at Marshall Whitmore with an expression so neutral it was its own kind of authority. I've known plenty of men who could offer stability, Varity said. What I've seen tonight is a man who showed up. Every single day. That's harder to find than money. She didn't pause for effect. She just picked up her fork and kept eating. Marshall's smile stayed on his face but had nowhere to go. How sweet, Daphne said. Jade put her phone face down on the table. Elias looked at Varity. She was already cutting her food like nothing happened. Later, during the cocktail portion of the evening, Elias found himself standing near the edge of the dance floor, watching couples move across the parquet. Varity stood beside him. The band shifted into something slow with more melody. You didn't have to do that, Elias said. I didn't do anything, she replied. You said something true. She looked at him sideways. Is that doing something? He was quiet for a moment. Where are you from originally? Baltimore, she said. Grew up there. Left at 22. And now Atlanta? Yes, and now Atlanta. He nodded. He wanted to ask more, but something in her tone told him she'd answer what she wanted to answer and nothing else. How do you know this hotel? He asked. The coordinator seemed to know you. I've spent time here, Varity said. It wasn't really an answer. He let it go. Across the room, Jade had pulled her mother aside. Daphne was holding Jade's phone, her face cycling through expressions she was trying hard to control. She looked up, found Varity across the ballroom. She looked away fast. Marshall noticed. He touched his wife's arm. What is it? Daphne folded the phone against her chest. Nothing, she said, but her voice had changed. Then the MC called for the father-daughter dance. Elias walked to the center of the floor. Selah came to him and put her arms around his neck the way she had when she was small enough for him to carry. The band played I Loved Her First by Heartland, something they had chosen together months ago on a phone call that lasted 2 hours because neither of them wanted to hang up. They danced. Elias held his daughter and looked at nothing, just the middle distance past her shoulder where time felt blurry. At one point Selah pulled back and looked at his face. You okay, Daddy? More than okay, he said. She studied his eyes. You're trying not to cry. I am trying not to cry. She laughed and put her head back on his shoulder. You're allowed to, Daddy. It's a wedding. He held on tighter and looked at the ceiling. He whispered something in her ear. Whatever it was, Selah closed her eyes. When she opened them, she was crying and smiling at the same time. She wrapped her arms around him, holding on like she could stop the world from moving. Across the ballroom, Varity watched from near the bar with a glass of water in her hand. She watched them the whole time. Jade found her mother and stood beside her. They both watched from across the room. Mom, Jade said quietly. I know, Daphne said. She didn't look away from the dance floor. After the dance, Elias found Selah surrounded by Whitmore relatives. He slipped toward the edge of the room. Varity was already there, standing near a tall window that looked out at the Atlanta skyline. Thank you, he said. For today. She turned. You don't have to keep thanking me. My daughter smiled at me all day, he said. Not that worried smile she gets when she thinks I'm struggling. A real one. He exhaled. That was worth more than $62. Varity looked back out at the city. You raised her well, she said. I had a good subject, he replied. They stood there without talking for a moment. It wasn't uncomfortable. How long has it been just the two of you? She asked. Selah's mother left when she was 9, he said. So 45 years for me. He caught himself. I mean, Selah is 29. He shook his head. I lose track of my own life sometimes keeping up with hers. Varity looked at him. That's not losing track, she said. That's what it looks like when somebody is your whole reason. He didn't have a response to that. He just looked at her. Before he could find one, Jade appeared in the doorway of a small lounge just off the ballroom. She looked at Varity, then at the floor. Ms. James, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to. She stopped. Daphne appeared behind her. Her face was different now. The sharpness was gone. My daughter says I was rude earlier, Daphne said. To you. And to Elias. Elias looked at her. Marshall doesn't always hear himself, Daphne said. I should have stopped him. Elias was quiet for a moment. He's not entirely wrong, he said finally. I didn't give Selah everything, but I gave her what I had. He paused. I have to believe that was enough. Daphne looked at him for a moment. Then she said something nobody expected. She looks at you like you're enough, Daphne said quietly. I've been watching her all day. She looks at you the way my kids look at Marshall and me when we get it right. She paused. We should all be so lucky. Nobody said anything. Jade let out a slow breath. Thank you, Elias said. Daphne turned to Varity, and in her eyes was a different kind of question now. One that had less to do with status and more to do with understanding. Varity James, Daphne said. She said it like she was still processing what the name meant. I'm just a friend, Varity said. Daphne almost smiled. I don't think that's entirely true. She said it gently this time. No edge. She took Jade's arm and walked back toward the ballroom. Elias waited until they were gone. He looked at Varity. What does she know? He asked. Varity was quiet for a moment. Things I should probably tell you myself. He waited for her to let the cat out of the bag. She looked at him straight. This hotel, she said. The Grand Haven. I own it. Elias said nothing. He just sat with that for a second in complete shock. And the one on Peachtree, she continued. And the one in Buckhead. A few others in Nashville and Houston. She paused. I started a logistics and real estate company when I was 26. Sold it in 2021. She said the number plain. $380 million. Elias sat down on the arm of a chair. Not dramatically. His legs just needed a second. He looked at the floor, then at her, then at the floor again. You were sitting outside eating a granola bar, he said. She almost laughed. I was on a break from a call. I come here sometimes when I need to think. I have an office on the 4th floor. He rubbed the back of his neck. Why didn't you tell me? Varity sat down across from him. Because you didn't ask me what I owned, she said. You asked me to stand beside you. Those are two different things. He looked at her. I said yes to what you actually asked for, she continued. The rest wasn't your business. He couldn't find the right words to say for a moment. They could still hear the band from the ballroom. I feel like I should give you back the $62, he said. She shook her head. No. Why not? Because you gave it honestly, she said. And I took it honestly. We're square. He looked at her. 54 years old, and he couldn't remember the last time he wanted something just for himself. Not for Selah. Not for work. Just for him. He stood. There's a dance floor in there, he said. And I haven't danced with anyone in a long time. He paused. If that's okay with you. Varity looked at him. She stood. It's just a dance, she said. They walked back into the ballroom together. The band had slowed things down. Selah was on the floor with Beckett, head on his shoulder, laughing at something he whispered in her ear. She looked up and saw her father, saw who was beside him. Her smile widened. Elias and Varity found a spot on the edge of the floor. He put one hand at her waist. She put her hand in his. They moved. He was a little off rhythm. She didn't make it a thing. After a moment he found his footing. You dance like someone who used to be good at it, she said. He laughed. I was. Long time ago. What happened? Life, he said. Just life. She nodded. She knew exactly what that meant. Across the room, Marshall watched them. He didn't say anything. He just watched a man in a good but not expensive suit dancing in the ballroom of a hotel he couldn't afford. And for just a moment, he was seeing something he hadn't expected to see. Jade's phone was away. Daphne was watching Selah, who was watching her father. And Elias, for the first time all night, looked like himself. The night did what good wedding nights do. Cake, family photos, laughter and dancing. When Selah and Beckett finally walked out to a shower of birdseed and cheering, the whole room felt it. Elias stood in the emptying ballroom. Jacket off, tie loose, the kind of tired that only hits you after a really good day. Varity appeared beside him with his jacket folded over her arm. "I should get going," she said. She held it out to him. He took it. He looked at her. "I'm glad I came," she said. He looked at her. "Can I ask you something?" "Go ahead," she said. "Did you stay because of the $62? Or was there something else?" Varity thought about it for a second. "You asked for help without pretending you didn't need it," she said. "Do you know how rare that is?" She met his eyes. "That told me everything I needed to know about you." Elias held her gaze. He reached into his jacket pocket, found the folded bills, held them for a second, then put them back. "I'd like to see you again," he said. "Not as a transaction. Just as two people who had a good day and might want another one." Varity looked at him for a moment. The ballroom staff moved around them, resetting tables, collecting glasses, returning the room to its blank potential. "Yes," she said. "I'd consider that." They exchanged numbers in the parking lot at 11:15, standing between his cracked dashboard truck and her late-model sedan, the Atlanta night cool and quiet around them. He drove back to his hotel room in a different part of the city, a modest place he had found online, with a parking lot that required a keycard. He sat on the edge of the bed in his good but not expensive suit, and he called Selah. She answered on the second ring, laughing at something in the background. "Daddy, you make it back." "To the hotel," he said. "I just wanted to say, today was the best day of my life. Second only to the day you were born." She got quiet. What was different about today? He thought about the parking lot, the stone wall, the granola bar, $62 and one question. "What's your daughter's name?" "I felt like myself," he said. "Like a whole person." "Daddy." Her voice dropped. "You have always been a whole person." He smiled at the wall. The next morning there was an envelope waiting for him at the front desk. Inside was the $62. And a note. "You paid for presents. You got more than that. So did I. The 62 is yours. Use it on something that matters." At the bottom, her number, which he already had, and beneath that a single line. "Selah dances like she owns every room she enters." I imagine she learned that from watching someone do the same thing, without the dancing. Elias read the note twice. He folded it and put it in the inside pocket of his jacket, next to his chest, where it stayed for the rest of the drive home to Memphis. 2 weeks later he called her. They talked for an hour and a half about nothing and everything that mattered. She was in Nashville for a property meeting. He was grading papers at his kitchen table. They discovered they had both read the same novel in high school and had both hated the ending for different reasons. He drove to Atlanta 6 weeks after that. Not to the hotel. To a small restaurant she had mentioned, a place in Inman Park with good lighting and no pretense. He wore the same suit, cleaned. She wore something simple. They talked until the restaurant closed around them. He did not pretend to be more than he was. She did not pretend to be less. And that, it turned out, was the only thing either of them had ever really needed. What Elias Carter carried into that parking lot was not wealth, not status, not a polished story about his life. He carried a father's love and $62 and the willingness to ask for help out loud, in the open, without disguising it as something more dignified. That willingness to need something and say so is harder than it sounds. Most of us have spent years learning to cover the gaps in ourselves, to present the complete version, the curated version, the version that asks for nothing and therefore never receives the right things. Elias didn't do that. He stood in a parking lot and held out $62 and told the truth. I am a person with a gap, and today the gap matters, and I need someone to help me fill it. The universe, in this case, sent him a woman who had built an empire out of recognizing what was undervalued. And Varity, for her part, had spent years surrounded by people who approached her for what she owned. Elias approached her for what she could give that money could not buy. Her time, her presence, her willingness to stand beside someone she did not know and let that be enough. These are not easy things to offer. They are not the expensive things, but they are the ones that last. So here is the question this story leaves you with. Is there a gap in your life that you have been covering instead of asking for help with? Is there someone in your world who needs you to simply stand beside them? Not to fix anything, not to explain anything, just to be there? Presence is not a small gift. For someone who has been standing alone long enough, it is everything. Drop your thoughts in the comments. We read every one. And if the story taught you something important, if it reminded you of a father you know, or a sacrifice you witnessed, or a kindness you received from a stranger at exactly the right moment, hit that like button. Costs you nothing, and it helps us bring more stories like this to the people who need them. Not subscribed yet? What are you waiting for? Subscribe right now and turn on your notifications so you never miss our next story. And share this video. Share it with someone who is standing alone in their own parking lot right now, holding whatever they have left, trying to figure out how to make it enough. Tell them, it already is. See you in the next video. Love you all.